On this episode of the Presbyterian and Reformed Churchman, I have Charlie Nave. Charlie is a ruling elder in Virginia, but he's also the founder and director of M.O.R.E in the PCA, which we will learn more about. Now, you may remember an earlier episode where I was discussing with Brad Isbell, and I misattributed that organization to Brad. Brad is the host of Presbycast, and so Brad said, no, you need to have Charlie Nave on. And I've been familiar with Charlie at different Gospel Reformation Network conferences and to see his work. And so, Charlie, I'm sorry I misattributed that, but I am familiar with you from those GRN things. Thanks for being on this episode.
Well, no problem at all. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what I really want to talk about is kind of maybe three things. One is, what is M.O.R.E? How did it happen? The second is the upcoming General Assembly. And then the third piece is really related to both. How should a ruling elder, how can M.O.R.E help a ruling elder? And maybe that comes up in the first part of the conversation, but also like what are some General Assembly 101 things? You've been to a few now. But first, let's talk about your background so people know who they're hearing from. How long you been in the PCA? Where are you? And what are you currently doing?
Okay. Well, I grew up in a PCUSA church, and so I saw that slide into more or less oblivion. And when I went away to college, I started attending basically Southern Baptist churches, and didn't join a PCA church. You know, I grew up thinking that the PCA was somehow illegitimate or sketchy. I didn't join a PCA church until 2008, and I did that here in Roanoke, Virginia. And let's see, what was the rest of the question?
Yeah, so like how long you been a ruling elder, and so how long you been in the PCA? Tell us a little bit about your family and then what you do for a career.
Sure. I've been a ruling elder since 2017 and jumped into General Assembly right away. I'm an attorney here in Virginia, married with two children that we homeschool, which has been along with the PCA has been a tremendous blessing to our family.
Ah, that's great. So, M.O.R.E in the PCA. Brad told me you had come to him with the idea, but I guess you are you're the founder, the board member. Tell us what M.O.R.E is, what it stands for, and kind of its genesis.
Okay. M.O.R.E is an acrostic, More Orthodox Ruling Elders. What we're trying to do is to remove some of the hurdles and hesitations that ruling elders have about attending and participating in General Assembly, especially because it's so expensive.
Oof, yes.
Also, presbytery. Ruling elders are pretty good about attending session meetings, but if you go to presbytery, if you go to General Assembly, you'll see that there's not nearly as many ruling elders as there are teaching elders. And of course, as Presbyterians, we believe in parity of elders, and we believe they should be on an equal footing, and there ought to be roughly equal numbers. So I went to my first GA in 2017, 6 months after I was ordained, because nobody else would go. Mm-hmm. And I got on to my session. I became a ruling elder in part because I was concerned about what was happening in the denomination. And in that year, the General Assembly was in Greensboro, so short drive for me, 90 minutes to get down there.
Yeah, that's my presbytery actually, but I wasn't up here at the time.
Yeah, well, it was a neat General Assembly, but it was striking to me that ruling elders were outnumbered by about 4 to 1. It was about an 80-20 split, and that troubled me. And a lot of the debate troubled me. There was just some, for lack of a better word, progressivism and some shibboleths that were just sort of bandied about on the floor of General Assembly unchallenged. And, that wasn't, I didn't feel like that's what I had signed up for as part of the PCA. I was under the impression that we were a pretty solidly confessional body. And, it was a little jarring to listen to some of that debate. And on the drive home, I was just consumed with thinking about a way to address this. And, I'm an attorney. I represent nonprofits and fundraisers, and I do a lot of grassroots work as part of my hobbies. So, I prepare nonprofits. I organize nonprofits. I get their C3 designation all the time, and I figured that there's got to be a way to increase ruling elder participation, and one way would be to remove these financial obstacles. There's got to be donors out there who can pool their money and help ruling elders pay for the $450 registration fee, pay for the 5 nights of hotel stays, and pay for travel. Some folks have to cross a continent to get to GA, and so I thought, I can get all that put together and then find someone to run it, and that'll be like 6 weeks work for me. And so I went ahead and did all that, but I never found someone else to run it, so I'm still running it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, just as you were talking, I thought, man, how does that, like, I want to expose more to the denomination, but I really was thinking how it fits just with some of my heart for this podcast and these episodes is how ruling elders see a need and a problem, and they fix it, and very practical. I interviewed O. Palmer Robertson on another podcast that I do, and he was just saying ruling elders tend to be more practical, more, see a problem, fix it. And I'm like, yeah. And that's what you did. And so that's awesome, because GA is expensive. Now I know, Brad did some work to get the ruling elder fee reduced. I forget what the new fee is. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's $300, and that was a great story and persistence. He's been working on this for 3 or 4 years, and finally went through. So
yes,
you just can't give up on these things.
No, that's right, and that's again the pursuit of another ruling elder to help the denomination. But even if we just to think through the numbers you said a second ago, so. For years it's been $450. So, let's use, I was an engineer and a math teacher, but I like to round numbers. So that's $500. And then you said, 5 nights, which it is, 5 nights generally. And the hotels, these are in major cities and they're expensive. I think that was one of the attractive things about the Greensboro GA is I think my understanding is the things were a little cheaper there, but generally, the hotel is over $200 a night. And so if you just use $200, which it will be more than that, because a lot of times there's not parking, there's other fees and taxes. It's really probably closer to $250. But if we say $200, that's $1,000. Now, of course, you can share a room, and that's encouraged, but that doesn't always work for people. And usually there's often an odd man who can't share. So that's $1,000 for a room, $500 for the fee, travel, $500. So now you're, what's that, $2,000, and that didn't include meals?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it does. And that's the kind of, expense reimbursement I was getting, when I was going, in previous years. It's a lot of money. And I jumped in, to overtures right away because no one else
good for
would.
You.
So,
right. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
And that's what makes it a 5-night stay. If you're just going for as a regular commissioner or on some other committee that doesn't meet early on, it's more like 4 nights. And some people blow off the first day and just do 3 nights. So
Yeah, but it's funny. It's not just overtures, because I was on the admin committee last year because I wanted to help vote for that proposal to reduce the fee. No, I'm sorry. We had a ruling elder on admin because that year it was for ruling elders. I was on interchurch relations. Anyway, I did sit in on the admin committee to watch that. But we put one of our ruling elders on it, and because we were all traveling and driving out together, they met Monday morning, which means you have to get there Sunday night. So, I mean, for that 1 hour long meeting, you end up having to get there a whole day early. Actually, travel in on the Lord's Day, just to make a meeting for the General Assembly. So. Yeah, I get that. And so $2,000, our church, we get 2 ruling elder representatives. We almost could have a third. We're like 10, 15 members from having a third M.O.R.E rep. And then we have 3 teaching elders. We've had 2. We just brought another on. So we could probably send 6 this year, 5 for sure. So we've had to budget, $10,000 for that. And I could see even how ruling elders around the denomination might feel that's not a wise use of the church's money, and that may be why some ruling elders also don't want to go. I remember when I was in the church in South Florida, that was one reason I didn't want to go, is I didn't want the church to have to spend the money, and I didn't have the money. And and you kind of think, and again, this is 5-6 years ago, you think the denomination's okay, the TEs can handle it. But, more and more what I'm seeing is, you said it should be equal ruling elders and teaching elders. I'd go a step further and say, really, we have more ruling elders in the denomination. It probably should be more, because there's so many teaching elders that aren't associated with a church. When you think of these guys in other calls outside the local church, and they have often an equal say with pastors that are pastoring, multiple 100-person congregations, because that pastor doesn't come with any ruling elders.
Right. Yeah, and it's that's a problem in presbytery as well. I have maybe it's an odd idea, but I just get the sense that it's strange to have an elder who doesn't serve on a session making rules for all these churches. It's strange to me that if you're a chaplain at a hospice, or if you're an RUF guy, or you're doing these wonderful works, these vital ministries, but they're not churches. What are you doing telling the churches what to do? But that's a debate that doesn't seem to be timely right now.
Well, right, and I think the answer is if churches just brought their complement, that would be okay. Because I don't whenever I think, well, go that route, the way you're thinking, I'm like, yeah, but I don't want these guys. I have friends that are RUF guys and church planners, and their voices are good and needed, and they're seeing things we're not seeing. The issue is not, in my mind, that they have a vote. The issue is that churches like my own is only sending 1 person instead of 5, because that would be the counterbalance, So yeah, I get it. So you saw that problem and you started M.O.R.E. So what year was that M.O.R.E. was officially started?
The corporation was organized in October of 2017, and we've been sending elders ever since. I think in 2018 we sent 2 elders. In 2019 we sent 5. In 2020 there was no General Assembly. In 2021, with all of the pent up interest in Revoice and what all, we sent 49 elders.
Yes, awesome.
And we helped the average elder with about $850. And then last year we helped 37 elders with an average assistance of just under $1,200. It's because not everybody needs everything. Some guys just need help with the registration fees. Some guys just need help with lodging. Some just need help with travel expenses or something. But along the way, I hope that we've helped inspire a lot of elders because we've seen many more ruling elders coming to General Assembly. It was these last two General Assemblies were not nearly as progressive sounding as that one I went to in Greensboro.
Yeah. Well, that's and it had I forget what the percentage was. It was a much higher percentage of ruling elders, still outnumbered, but a huge increase in 5 years.
Yeah, I think we got up to like 30% of the assembly was ruling elders. So
right.
2-1.
Yeah, and let me just encourage you then that so your heart is not to just be able to pay or help people with their expenses, but to encourage that across the denomination. So here's how you've done that for us. So I told you offline a little bit of the background of the church that I'm at. We've been through a rough 3 years leading into 2020, and then 2020 was, it was rough for everybody. It's funny. I became the senior pastor 1 month before COVID hit. So I was installed in February, and then COVID hit in March. And so we come off all these issues and real struggles at the church, and then we go into that. And so the 2021 GA, we didn't send any ruling elders to our shame or to my discouragement, because I take that as a blame on me. And going into 2022, it was really questionable if we were gonna, because guys work and that's something else I kind of feature on this podcast. It's like the ruling elders have full-time jobs, and most guys not like 40 hours a week. I talk to a lot of guys that are 60 and above, and then they have to use time off for these things, and oftentimes they have to pay out of pocket. And Meadowview would pay for them. That's not a question. We always do. But we didn't have anybody slotted, and then Brad had MD, what's his name, Hagwood? Mm-hmm. Call me. I don't know why I was on his radar for this, but just to see if we needed support. And it really just convicted me to say I haven't done enough. Like, I put it out there if any REs want to go, and I knew guys' circumstances, and we didn't have. And so I just went after a couple of guys, and they were able to go, and they were excited to go. And we didn't. I told Brad and I told MD I don't want to take. I don't want to take the scholarship because we've budgeted for this. What I was going to do is, if I couldn't get guys to go, I was going to donate the money we'd budgeted to you guys so you'd send others. But my point is, we sent 2 guys last year because you guys reached out. And again, that's probably to our shame. But we're believers in it. And so you have encouraged that. And I think that this podcast will do the same. And that's what I'm hoping.
Well, that's a great story, and I'm I'm glad it worked out that way, and I'm really glad you're doing this podcast. We need more of this. We need to make sure that elders all over the denomination realize that there's a reason for Presbyterianism, and it's important that each one of these churches do send their full accompaniments to Presbytery and to General Assembly. I think we'd all be much less frustrated were we to do that. It seems easier to say, everyone else has got it handled, but that's just not always the case.
And, and to trust, like when I was in South Florida and really not engaged in denominational business, just focused locally, and that's, where our first calling is to we're shepherds of the local church. But you just kind of think, well, your pastor has it covered. They're just changing some policies in the Book of Church Order. There's really nothing doctrinally going on, But what we've seen is that's just not true. We've gone from one, I don't know what to call them, one theological debate and issue to another, and it really has consequences. And while we might not be able to overcome a lot of these 2/3 votes required in presbytery, there's a lot we get to do at the denominational level at General Assembly that can kind of move the bar, like pulling out of the National Association of Evangelicals. That was the committee that I served on. I mean, that was an assembly action that didn't have to go through the presbyteries. Mm-hmm. And we see some of what the NAE is getting involved in now, and I'm glad our name isn't associated with them. The abortion statement to the United States government, that was an assembly decision that happened not through the presbyteries. I mean, it came up through an overture from the presbyteries, but didn't have to go to presbytery votes. And so, that was, I'm glad we actually made a statement before the overturning of Roe versus Wade happened, because it's good to have a statement on these things. And so, anyway, my point is, a lot happens at General Assembly. But to your point about presbytery, same thing. And one thing I'll say to Piedmont Triad Presbytery's credit, because that's the presbytery I'm in, is we have our meetings on Saturdays. And so on the one hand, and I know this across denomination, a lot of teaching elders don't like Saturday presbytery meetings because that's a day off for most guys. And what I would say is it's a day off for all ruling elders too. And what I found is in our presbytery, we get a lot of ruling elders. Mediview always sends at least our complement, if not others, as observers. They want to go. They want to be involved, And when I was in a presbytery before where our meeting was on Tuesday and it was all day on Tuesday, our ruling elder participation was terrible because it's a lot for somebody to have to take a day off, and brave traffic in a South Florida context and all that and we should, but yeah, so we need that involvement. So let's, I guess since we're talking more, let's, how do guys apply?
Well, there's a website that we have, moreinthepca.org, and the application for 2023 is up and live right now. Go to moreinthepca.org and click on the Apply tab, and there's an application to fill out. Just fill it out, and we will be in touch with you via email to go through the process with you. But it's pretty simple. We've kind of got it down to a science now after doing it this many years, finally. But to what you were saying before that, another one of the hesitations that ruling elders have is that it seems like they're not going to know anyone at General Assembly, and that's true. If you're a teaching elder and you go, General Assembly is not just work of the church; it's also kind of vacation and homecoming and all this stuff. You get together with your pastor buddies, and your seminary might have a lunch, and there's events to go to, and there's things for your wife to do, and you can drop your kids off at Ridgehaven, and it's all these things. Well, and that doesn't really exist for ruling elders right away. But now that I've been many years, we've built up this grassroots network, and I have friends I look forward to seeing there and working with and socializing with. So it's a very different experience for ruling elders, but it can get a lot better with repetition. You want to go, and you want to go over and over to build up your network, and so you can be effective for your congregation in the context of the church. Also, you mentioned that there's a tendency for elders even, but also people in the pews to think, well, this is all about really fine theological issues that I don't have an interest in or a facility about. Excuse me. This whole revoice and side B gay issue really kind of tore down that wall for a lot of people. When your pastor starts saying that, maybe we need to, massage our ordination standards a little bit on this issue, people notice. And people think, people start asking questions, and they begin to seek other counsel, and I'm almost grateful that this came up, because it got people engaged, and it's got people coming to General Assembly. It's got people coming to Presbytery, and it's got people. If you're in a church where your pastor is open to these ideas, you're more likely to go to the Aquila Report or go to Presbycast or go somewhere else to see, well, isn't there a smart Presbyterian take on the other side of this that I want to hear about? And we've seen that dynamic kind of I think work to the health of the church over the last couple of years.
Yeah, great point. So try to key in on some of what you said there. On the one thing, it is difficult for ruling elders because you're right. For teaching elders, like, this becomes a vacation for a lot of guys. They bring their families, like you said, they bring their wives. They get to stay in nice hotels, and I mean, I love it. I love going. See a lot of guys, but a ruling elder who's, again, working 60, 70 hours a week, got his family, he shows up, who's he interfacing with? He's involved locally, maybe. And what you said is right. Like, you very quickly develop the networks you need. And so, but I do think this is an encouragement if there's teaching elders out there listening, like, I got this from GRN, and it's true. Like, it's your job to introduce your guys around, to help them navigate what's going on. The first GA you go to when you're hearing all the parliamentary procedure, it's not like a presbytery meeting. It is on steroids, and it's quick, and things get squashed quick, and things blow up quick. And so teaching elders, be helping your ruling elders, and but if guys, go to Aquila Report, listen to Presbycast, you're going to be exposed to a lot of guys. So when I go and hang out, I end up hanging out with, ruling elders, I wouldn't say an equal number, because there's just not an equal number there, but lots of ruling elders are in the circles that I'm discussing things in. And I forget, I often ask, are you ruling elders, teaching elder? It doesn't even come up, And so, and when you see guys write articles on Aquila Report, oftentimes they're ruling elders, and you could reach out to them. I love it when I write something and somebody reaches out to me, and now I got a friendship. Also, you host. I guess I can bring this up. I mean, it's not a secret. You hosted last year the More in the PCA event for ruling elders at General Assembly, and that was just a super. I think that was one of the most fun things, non-business related, at General Assembly last year.
Yeah,
tell us about that.
Wonderful. Well, maybe another person you might want to have on your podcast is Billy Ball. But we worked with Billy Ball down at Briarwood to basically have a free barbecue dinner and time of socializing at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, or Alabama College Sports Hall of Fame. It was right there at the convention venue. And there was 450, maybe 500 people there. It was great. I didn't get any barbecue. I was so busy talking to folks, and people came and had a great time. And we got a list out of that. We encouraged people to give us their email address and their name. So we've added that to our list. Billy Ball is putting together a ruling elder network. He's got the list. So we're all these different grassroots organizations out there trying to network people together and draw on each other's strengths to keep the denomination biblical and keep it strong and keep it together. There was, for many, many years, people were so concerned about the direction of the PCA, and churches were leaving. Good, solid, conservative, confessional churches were leaving the denomination, and they don't really have a great place to go. That's sort of another factor in our favor, is that if you're a confessional Presbyterian, your back's kind of up against the wall. You kind of have to fight, or because there's nowhere else to go. If you're a progressive Christian, I mean, there's any number of denominations where you'd fit in just fine. But that's not the way it is on our side of the spectrum. So people have begun to stand up and assert themselves and defend biblical truth. And I'm seeing that all over the denomination, and it helps to have a network because there's strong people all over. This is, we're a grassroots Presbyterian denomination. That means this is, nobody does this alone. There are no bishops. We've got to have a lot of people populating committees, populating General Assembly, and doing the right thing.
Yeah. So let me add to that. To listeners, and maybe we have listeners that aren't in the PCA, like in the OPC or the ARP, and you hear that and you think we're like, that's something I would say also is, where are we going to go? And you may say, well, what do you mean? What's wrong with, yeah, but all the denominations are dealing with things. And so when guys in the PCA are thinking, do we leave or stay? Do we fight or go? Well, one is we want a pure church for our Lord. But another is the grass isn't greener, and we know there's issues all over. And, the ARP is great, but if you're in Florida, you may be 2 hours from the nearest ARP church, so that's not really an option for you, for those of us that want connectionalism. Not that I'm in Florida. But my point is, the Lord has put us here, and we are, and what we're finding through these networks that Charlie mentioned is there's a lot of guys that we have a lot in common with. And there's a sweetness to it. There's a sweetness to the fellowship and to how we grow with one another. And so Billy Ball, yes, I'll have to have him on. Actually, I thought he was you. Actually, and when I saw you, I was like, oh, that's not the guy I thought he was, because I remember him speaking at some event, probably promoting the get together. So are you guys planning another GA get together?
Yep, we are. We're planning to have folks get together at the Rendezvous in Memphis on Wednesday night. This will be a ticketed event instead of a free-for-all. But yeah, we're looking forward to that a lot. That should be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's good. And I figured you'd have to do that because it's such a fun event that you don't want to get crowded out. You don't want all the TEs crashing your RE thing. Hopefully I could be a guest.
Absolutely.
Since I'm a friend. Cool. So let's, it's daunting for ruling elders who have never been involved denominationally. And so what are some advice for you? What is some advice that you have for them, knowing that their presbyteries are about to meet here in January and February? Most presbyteries don't send their full complement of committee of commissioner appointments. And so you can actually get on a committee of commissioners, but you don't have to be on a committee of commissioners to go to General Assembly, to be a commissioner of the Assembly. Do you want to explain some of this? And if you want me to, I will, but maybe you could explain some of this lingo and some of the inner workings, some of the GA 101 stuff that somebody might need to know to go.
Sure. I really just have a limited knowledge because I've only been on Overtures Committee, and then I was on Covenant Covenant Seminary once. But my advice to an elder is to volunteer to be on a committee. It's all the committees have influence and authority, some more than others, but it's not just doing the work of the church that's important. The great benefit of being on a committee is you really get to meet other elders outside your church, outside your presbytery, and that's how you can get involved in this network of other elders. And as long as you're going to be at General Assembly in Memphis or wherever it is, you might as well double down on getting involved by being on a committee. So my advice is to volunteer, talk to your moderator at Presbytery, talk to your TE, whoever, There are probably open committee slots for ruling elders from your presbytery. Volunteer to be on one, and volunteer to go to General Assembly, see if you can get your church to make you a commissioner, and just go. I encourage people to not speak on the floor of General Assembly until you've been there a few times. That's kind of a typical thing, is that some newbie will get up and say something that doesn't really move the ball forward, and it kind of wastes people's time, and it bugs folks. But I told myself that I'm not going to speak on the floor of General Assembly until I've been there my 11th time, and so I still haven't done it. But that's my advice: is to volunteer, go do the work, just right off this week. As you said before, it's tough because you got to take vacation time, or you lose sales, or you lose billable hours. And a lot of folks want to wait until they're retired. The problem with that is, a lot of retired people end up being full-time caregivers. I mean, it's always something. There's always something else you could be doing instead of General Assembly, but you need to make time for it. And same with Presbytery.
So the Memphis General Assembly is June 12th to 16th. That is is 12th a Tuesday? I think it might be. But you may have to get there the day before, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, that's a Monday. Right. Yeah. And this is the 50th anniversary, so there's going to be a lot of interesting things going on for General Assembly. Let me just explain some of it, because I remember in Florida just being daunted at trying to register with the terminology. I didn't even know, and then I just didn't go. It was about 10 years ago. But so when you go to General Assembly, when you register for it, you become a commissioner. And you go and you vote. You'll get a little voting device. You'll get a welcome goodie bag of stuff. And you go to all the sessions and you get to vote on all these things. If you're going to be on a committee, they call it a committee of commissioners. What it is there's permanent committees in the denomination, for the administrative committee, for the interchurch relations committee, for all these committees, Covenant College, Covenant Seminary. I'm forgetting if those are actually committees or it's just the board. No, those are permanent committees. And what happens is they're doing work all year round, but then when they come to the assembly, people from the presbyteries are assigned to be on those committees to actually vote on their recommendations to send them to the General Assembly. And every presbytery gets a representative on every one of those committees. And it alternates. It's not like all the teaching elders can fill all the slots. So half of the committees are slotted for each presbytery to be for ruling elders, and half of the committees are slotted for each presbytery to be for teaching elders, which means, in theory, every committee at General Assembly, committee of commissioners, would have half and half. It just doesn't work out that way. And so if a slot that is made for a ruling elder has no ruling elder nominees, then a teaching elder can fill it. But if there's even one ruling elder nominee, the teaching elder can't fill it. And so it swaps every year. So that's some guidance for you. And like I said, there is they're never all full for the presser. It's rare. I think Piedmont Triad filled almost all of them last year, and that would be a rare thing. And so the next hurdle for ruling elders is, but I won't know what to do when I'm there. You will. To be on these committees, most of them involve one meeting. Some of them might involve two during General Assembly. It's one meeting. There's a moderator that already explains what you're voting on. Before the assembly, you'll get information on it, and there's plenty of resources to help you figure that out. And many of the committee meetings are only like an hour, less than 2 hours at General Assembly. So it's not a huge commitment. And the overtures is. And so Charlie jumped into the deep end when he went on overtures, which is, could be days worth of meetings, but the other ones are not. And so, but whether or not you're on a committee, you go to General Assembly, you register, now you're a voter at General Assembly. So we recommend every church send your elders to that. Hopefully churches are paying for it. because they're supposed to pay for their ruling elders to go, but a lot of churches don't have the budget for it, especially solo pastor churches with, less than $100,000 budgets. They don't have the money to send all these people, and that's where More in the PCA can help and is willing to help. Charlie, do you have a number of REs you can help every year? And you don't have to give us that number if you don't want to.
No, we don't have an upper limit on it. We've got a budget, and hopefully, if we get to the end of our budget, we can raise more money and help more men.
Yeah. So how do you, I assume then you take donations. So we're going to have listeners here, either individuals or sessions or churches or pastors that are hearing this, and they may say, man, we want to help more ruling elders go. How can they give to More in the PCA?
Through the same website, you go to moreinthepca.org and click on the donate tab, and we've made it super easy for folks to give, and they have. We've gotten great grassroots support for the last 4 years, and it's slowing down a little bit. So we'd love to kick it back up. This is the time when people are making plans for General Assembly, especially. So if folks want to help some other church or some other organization send a ruling elder to General Assembly, we are willing and eager to help.
Yeah, and I'll even make a plug for you that if you have budgeted for this, which I would think most churches probably have a budget for General Assembly, and for whatever reason you have leftover money in it, or you can't use the money because you don't have the guys to go. I mean, some solo pastor might have himself and 3 ruling elders, and the REs can't go. Maybe you would consider helping others go through More in the PCA. You can give them the money, and they will find ruling elders who are desirous to go, but financially are having trouble making it happen. And so that's a plug. What would you recommend right now? It's January, but registration's not open yet. I assume the hotel's going to get booked pretty quick. What do you recommend for a ruling elder who's hearing this and saying, I want to go, but I don't know the first step. I haven't even talked to my senior pastor. And then after maybe, he talks to the session, he doesn't know what to do. What are some steps you'd give him?
Well, my first recommendation is to get a reservation in Memphis because they go fast. And if it doesn't work out, if you can't go, you can cancel the reservation. Take note of the reservation cancellation policy. But that's going to be very difficult to come by pretty soon. So I get a reservation. Secondly, start talking to other elders, your pastor, other elders in your presbytery, if you know them, maybe the moderator, about what slots on committees are available to you or to ruling elders, and start praying about volunteering for that. It's time to get the wheels in motion. The year kind of the spring kind of comes quickly. Maybe it's just my line of work, but things get super busy, and you want to have your registration and volunteer squared away early. As soon as you register with the administrative committee as a commissioner, they're going to start sending you emails. So there's stuff to learn and to be aware of, starting in, I think, March. So you want to be on you want to get this figured out as soon as possible, and get registered, volunteer for a committee and all. It's a little disappointing that some presbyteries, including my own, isn't going to make committee assignments for a lot of the committees of commissioners until your April meeting. If you wait that long, a lot of people have commitments for other things in June, and you're going to lose out on some people. So if you have a mind to do this, start making plans now.
Yeah, good word on that. So just to repeat it, I think at your if you want to go to General Assembly from your session, at your next session meeting in January or February, make that known to your session. I believe the session has to send you as a representative, and so you'll need to be nominated and voted in by your session. When PCAAC.org opens General Assembly registration, you will register. So let's see. Oh, that was last year's. I'm just opening it. So here's the registration page, and it says registration will open in 2023, and everybody's anxiously awaiting for the registration for General Assembly to open. Once you register, they'll send you an email to with all the information, and the hotel info will be on there too. But again, we know which hotel it's at, but then you want to book your room. And as Charlie's advising, you may want to book your room from now and do it as a refundable thing, so you can at least have a room. And so go to your session, get nominated in, register for General Assembly, get a room, and then at your next presbytery meeting, and really before, I'd contact your clerk or your moderator and ask them when the appointments to committees will be. And whether or not you get on a committee, you're going to General Assembly to vote on things. It's just whether or not you're going to be in a smaller committee for a couple hours or an hour or two. And so that's really it. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. It's all about getting your planning done now, so that it's much easier come June.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to at this General Assembly? And when I say that, I don't mean like you're happy about, but just what are some things on the radar, maybe moving through presbyteries, or that we will be dealing with or doing at General Assembly?
Well, I still have my eyes on Overture 15 from last year. My presbytery hasn't voted on it yet. I was part of the majority that voted on it in the Overtures Committee. I was part of the majority on the floor that voted for it. That was kind of a close vote. And unlike the overtures from the previous year on the same Side B topic, Overture 15 is so far doing surprisingly well. I'm encouraged. And I'm going to be watching that. I'm going to be watching the Scott Edberg spreadsheets to find out how it goes through all these different presbyteries, and I hope that we're going to be able to vote on it in Memphis to make it a part of the BCO. But the one thing that I've learned through this is, it's not just the BCO. It's not just what the words we have on paper. It's also the men we have on committees. Are they going to like Harry Reeder says? Are they using the same dictionary we're using? Are they are they going to see these issues the same way we do? And there's a saying that personnel is policy. So there's a lot of important votes on the floor of General Assembly that just have to do with putting the right men on committees. And I don't know what those votes are now. By the time I get to General Assembly, we'll know. But I know that there will be important votes. It's just, these things are going to have to bubble up through the presbyteries and through the committees. And by the time we get to Memphis, we'll know how important everything is.
Yes, and a lot happens. You'd think, what's funny, in the PCA things, and in the Presbyterian world, things move very slow. But January to General Assembly, I've never seen so much work get done. Because all these overtures will show up now, in the next few months that you didn't even know. And so Overture 15, of course, is the overture disqualifying men who self-profess to be homosexuals from office. And whereas Overture 23 last year, which was less specific but still we wanted, that was failing. Right now this one is passing and actually has picked up a net of one presbytery, and it would need 4. So it's well on its way. That's something people can pray for. You'll hear arguments about Overture 29, which is passing unanimously as being better, but it adds absolutely nothing to our Constitution. And many men in my camp like Overture 29. But all it does is reiterate what's in our confession. If Overture 15 fails or looks like it's going to fail, well, I'll ask you, do you expect a flurry of new overtures to come to GA to try to further hone the language?
I do. I hope for it. Just because a particular church and a certain TE have moved on out of the denomination doesn't mean that this issue is over. The conditions that allowed Revoice to flourish for so many years are still with us. There's nothing stopping another memorial PCA. There's nothing stopping another chapel like they have there, or another teaching elder that wants to change our ordination standards and run off people who make them feel uncomfortable. And that needs to be fixed. And there's two fixes. There's a PCO fix, but there's also a committee fix. If you read that, the minority report, the minority decision from the SJC case in one of the spec cases, I can't remember, but they pointed out that the majority had broken its own rules. The majority of the Standing Judicial Commission had gone out and done fact gathering. If you're a lawyer, you know that an appellate court doesn't do that. That's just not part of their jurisdiction or their purview. This was kind of a stunning breach of all kinds of norms that was made to keep Greg Johnson comfortable in the PCA, and it's a bad precedent, and I tend to think that it needs to be undone. So there's a whole lot of mess to clean up, and this isn't over.
No, it's not over, and I think what it revealed is, to your point about being happy about the, not that we have to deal with this, but at least the issue has made many more people get engaged. And one thing I think the whole Revoice Side B Memorial the chapel issue has raised is we need a better way to be able to take these matters to go to the SJC. And so there's an overture right now, I think it's Overture 8, that's trying to amend how, I don't know, what's the legal term for the upper court to take it?
Oh, well, in the Supreme Court setting, it would be certiorari. But just to take jurisdiction of a case.
Original jurisdiction, right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that looks like, that overture looks like it could fail the presbyteries this year to change the standards by which the SJC can take cases if enough presbyteries. And so I foresee another overture replacing that at this General Assembly if this one fails, which means there will be important overtures to vote on. But even if there's not one single overture to vote on, there's going to be committee appointments to vote on. There's going to be all kinds of things that require decisions. And part of what's going to help our denomination is getting the right men on the committees, on the permanent committees, because they're the ones that are doing the direct oversight of the different organizations that we're questioning maybe some of what they're doing. And so there's a lot to that'll be going on. Also, the 50th anniversary, and there's going to be all kinds of exciting things for that. Actually, all year long, there's going to be news and information about the 50th anniversary, and that's something that we should celebrate and thank the Lord for, the founding of this denomination. And may we be faithful to help keep the denomination faithful to the Lord.
Yeah, that should be some fun celebrations and commemorations all throughout the year and throughout the week. It'll be interesting that we're 50 years old, but this is only the 49th General Assembly because COVID.
Yes. Yes, I know. Everything's been shifted, and but again, to look on the bright side of that, I like that we're founded in 73 and we're celebrating the 50 and 23. So even if we've only had 49 General Assemblies. So are you going to be at the Gospel Reformation Network conference in Charlotte?
Yes,
Matthews?
I will. Yes,
Great. So I will see you there. I mean, we're only a couple hours from each other anyway, but this year the Gospel Reformation Network Conference is in Matthews, North Carolina at the church where Kevin DeYoung pastors. He will be one of the speakers there. I've also heard some exciting news about some of the other speakers. So if you're listening to this and you are near North Carolina, Gospel Reformation Network in May, and we'll probably have another podcast about that. You know, it's been in Birmingham the last few years, which puts it out of reach for a lot of people. But now this is going to open up the GRN to a lot of new people. So look for Charlie there, look for myself there. And that's going to be 1 month from General Assembly. So you'll need to do all your GA planning before then. But we'll look forward to saying hi to each other and others there. Any final words, Charlie?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of it. I guess my big piece of advice is to volunteer. If you're an elder, see if you can get on some of these committees. Make sure that your church's voice is heard at Presbyterian General Assembly.
Great. Thanks. And with that, we will sign off. Thanks for joining for another episode of the Presbyterian Reformed Churchman. I've got some exciting guests coming up, and this has just been a joy to do. Once again, thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Pastor George.
Sure.